It's 8 p.m. and here are our top stories in 90 seconds.
Youth violence is real, but most importantly, it's preventable.
A regional effort to reduce youth violence across the metro. It is something that is personal for one Denver mother.
And it's his best friend screaming in my ear, Miss Angel, Devari's been shot.
Tonight, the new steps being taken to keep our kids safe. It's the start of a roller coaster week of weather in Colorado.
Not very warm today, just readings in the mid-40s, and I'm afraid that's going to stick around for a while.
It's happened again. A shooting at a Tennessee high school leaves one person dead and a police officer injured. A critical mistake leaves a 20-year-old man dead and a community on edge demanding answers.
We will do all that is within our power to make sure that justice is done for Dante Wright.
Plus, a program meant to solve unemployment fraud claims in our state may be causing even more problems.
You get a feeling of emptiness not knowing what's going on.
And a Washington state sheriff's office has infiltrated Colorado to try to lure away law enforcement officers. Good Monday evening, and thank you for watching Denver7 News on Local 3. I'm Jessica Porter. 17-year-old Devare Armstrong was known for his engaging smile, his laughter, and his leadership on the football field. But last summer, his life was tragically taken in a case of youth gun violence. Today, Denver Mayor Michael Hancock addressed youth violence and what it's being done to stop it. Here's Denver7's Addie Guajardo.
It's a call that haunts parents.
I'll never forget that day.
For the rest of their lives.
His best friend screaming in my ear, Miss Angel, Devari's been shot.
Angel Shabaz's 17-year-old son, Devare Armstrong, was shot and killed at a house party in Montbello last summer. He was a football player at South High School.
He was a scholar, an athlete, a leader.
With big dreams.
He knew that he was going to try to make it to the pros.
But Devare never saw graduation day.
Youth violence is a public health crisis.
Monday kicked off National Youth Violence Prevention Week.
Youth violence is real, but most importantly, it's preventable.
Denver Mayor Michael Hancock led a panel to address city efforts to tackle the crisis.
Youth violence is more than just gun violence. It's more than just community violence. It's also self-harm, including suicide, alcohol, tobacco, and substance misuse, and relationship violence.
We are the generation for change.
In 2019, Denver launched the Youth Violence Prevention Action Table to develop a public health approach to prevent youth violence. The 2021 outcome, the organization expanded youth violence program grants for community organizations, created pop-up events to reach teens, and purchased a building for a youth empowerment center set up to open in 2022.
It started for sure, but I think we also need to hit the pavement. I think we need to talk to single moms like myself.
Nothing will bring back Devare's life, but leaders hope through education they can make a difference and help save lives.
Any death among teens that is preventable is too many deaths.
Angel hopes teens think twice before pulling the trigger.
I'm going to ever have to deal with this pain. When you lose somebody, this is forever. Picking up a gun to take somebody's life is not nothing that you're going to do temporarily.
Addie Guajardo, Denver7.
This past Friday, the South High School football team unveiled this portrait of Devare at halftime of their game. They have Devare's jersey on their bench as well. South High School is currently undefeated and playing every game for their lost teammate. A memorial is growing in the Denver Highlands for a man who was killed in a weekend crash and a child who was critically injured. This happened at the intersection of Lowell and 32nd. 49-year-old Patrick Layden has been arrested on suspicion of vehicular homicide. Denver police say Layden was speeding when he ran a red light and smashed into a car driving through the intersection. Tonight, a tragic story out of Weld County. A group representing dairy farmers in Colorado says a 44-year-old man drowned in a manure pit while working at Shelton Dairy in LaSalle. This happened back on March 30th. Juan Ponzo Temoxlte was operating a manure vacuum truck when it fell into the pit and trapped him inside the cab. Well, we hope you have some good memories of that weekend warm-up because this week will be wet and gloomy. Let's send it to Chief Meteorologist Mike Nelson with a check of our Denver7 forecast. Mike.
Hi, Jessica. Yeah, it doesn't look like a very great week coming up here in the middle part of April. Today was cool in Denver with a high of only 46. We did have some upper 60s out west and down south, but not around here. And it's 39 currently. And look up to the north of us, 27 degrees at Laramie, Wyoming. There's not much precipitation out. There's a little bit of light rain and snow shower activity that's developing. And this doesn't look like there's much happening, but what we're going to see over the next few days is cold weather and unsettled weather that's just going to stick around the Denver area and across much of the state. This cold air is going to slide southward, and so the headlines are not all that impressive. Chilly for the next few days with periods of rain and snow, and we need the moisture, so that's the bright side of these gray skies.
Thank you, Mike. Tonight, federal authorities are on the scene of a school shooting in Knoxville, Tennessee. One person was killed and a police officer injured this afternoon in Austin East Magnet High School. One person was detained for further investigation. The officer that was shot is conscious, alert, and recovering. Today, members of the Museum of Boulder were out at the King Soopers Memorial collecting items to put on display at the museum.
Really just trying to collect things to preserve both the event itself, but also especially the community's reaction to it, and just making sure that this is a part of Boulder history, and it's a tragic, part that I wish had never happened, but it's important to still remember it and memorialize it and keep objects from it.
Family members of victims who would like to keep pieces of the memorial can reach out to the Museum of Boulder. Tonight, a curfew is in place across the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area after a shooting death of an unarmed black man by a police officer. President Biden is among those calling for calm after destructive protests last night. Tensions are already high in that area just 10 miles from where former officer Derek Chauvin is on trial for the death of George Floyd. Here's ABC's Andrea Fujii.
Brooklyn Center police releasing this body camera video of when police say an officer intended to use her taser and instead accidentally shot her gun, killing 20-year-old Dante Wright. Police say after Wright was stopped for a traffic violation Sunday afternoon, they determined he had an outstanding warrant for a misdemeanor offense. Police began taking him into custody. There was a struggle, and as Wright tries to get into his car, the officer can be heard yelling, "Taser, taser." But the chief of police saying the officer fired her gun instead. The officer heard saying she just shot him. Police never finding a weapon in Wright's car and calling the incident an accidental discharge.
This appears to me, from what I viewed and the officer's reaction and distress immediately after, that this was an accidental discharge that resulted in the tragic death of Mr. Wright.
The car continued to drive for several blocks before crashing into another car. Wright was pronounced dead at the scene, despite paramedics trying to save him.
There's nothing I can say to lessen the pain of Mr. Wright's family. What I can do is convey my deepest sympathies to the Wright family and be transparent with the information I'm aware of at this time.
Overnight, protesters took to the streets. At least 20 businesses were reportedly damaged or looted overnight as protesters threw objects at officers, jumped on police cars, and smashed windows.
We will do all that is within our power to make sure that justice is done for Dante Wright.
Wright's mother said he called her as he was being pulled over.
And I heard scuffling, and I heard the police officer say, "Dante, don't run," and then the other officer said, "Put the phone down," and hung it up.
The officer involved is now on administrative leave. And this is all happening about 10 miles away from the courthouse from where former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin is on trial in the death of George Floyd. Andrea Fujii, ABC News, New York.
Andrea, thank you. Billboards recruiting law enforcement officers to join the Spokane, Washington Sheriff's Office are popping up around the metro. The Sheriff's Office says it is recruiting in Denver, Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington. And they chose those cities because they say they are places where law enforcement is not generally supported by local elected officials.
You get a feeling of emptiness, not knowing what's going on.
Coloradans left feeling hopeless and locked out of their unemployment because of an increase in fraud.
Between dealing with unemployment and dealing with the identity theft stuff, it really is, it's more than a full-time job. It's 8 to 10 hours a day trying to get this resolved.
Tonight, what you need to know if you've fallen victim to fraud.
See these 60s out here to the west? Don't expect them in Denver anytime soon.
And coming up later, undocumented Coloradans who contribute to the economy in our state are being left out of receiving relief during the pandemic.
The bills piled up, rent piled up, trying to get food piled up, and not being able to receive a stimulus check.
But one group is making sure they're not forgotten.